Right. So we got this question, and I got to say, it's a good one. Someone asked, what is the diaphragm of a woman's body?
Interesting.
It seems pretty simple at first, right? But something
Yeah.
tells me there's more to it than meets the eye. You know, like there's got to be some nuance here.
I think you're right. It's one of those questions that seems straightforward,
Right.
but it can actually lead to some really fascinating discussions about the human body.
So before we go too deep into the specifics, maybe we should just start with the basics. Like what exactly the diaphragm, for those of us who, maybe haven't cracked open an anatomy book lately.
Sure, absolutely. So the diaphragm is a muscle. It's a dome-shaped muscle, actually, and it sits right under your lungs. You can almost picture it like a flexible partition,
Okay.
kind of separating your chest from your abdomen.
Okay, so it's not like some weird, obscure organ. It's a muscle we all have.
Exactly.
But why is it so important? Like, what does it actually do?
It's basically the engine of breathing. So every time you inhale, your diaphragm contracts and it flattens out, which creates more space in your chest.
Makes sense.
For your lungs to expand and take in air. And then when you exhale, it relaxes and goes back to that dome shape and helps push air out.
Well, wait a minute. So every time I breathe, this muscle is working. Like I never even think about it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Huh. Kind of makes you realize how much we take breathing for granted,
Totally. It's like this constant vital process that's happening inside all of us all the time.
Right, right. Now, going back to the question, they specifically mentioned a woman's diaphragm. Is there something different about it in women compared to, say, men?
That's where it gets interesting. So in terms of anatomy, the diaphragm itself is the same in both men and women. No difference there.
Okay.
However, there are situations where its function can be impacted.
Oh, okay.
In women specifically. The most obvious example being pregnancy.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, as the baby grows, it must put a ton of pressure on the diaphragm, right?
Exactly. So the growing uterus kind of pushes the diaphragm upward.
Oh, wow.
And that can make taking those deep breaths a little bit more challenging, especially later in the pregnancy.
Wow, I never even considered that. So even though the diaphragm itself is the same, the experience of breathing, like the actual feeling of it, can be quite different for women, especially during pregnancy.
Exactly. And I think it just highlights how important it is to understand these nuances.
Totally. So, listener, if you've ever been pregnant and felt like, man, breathing is hard, you're not alone. Turns out it's your hardworking diaphragm adjusting to, accommodate your growing baby.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
This is fascinating stuff. It's amazing how a simple question about the diaphragm can actually open up this whole conversation about the female body.
Totally. It's a reminder that there's always more to learn when it comes to our own bodies. And it's complex, It
really is. It makes you think too, what other processes in the body do we assume are the same for everyone, but actually have these subtle variations? It's something to think about, right? As we continue on our journeys of learning about ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question to leave everyone with.